I got nervous. My mind started racing. I'm done for. He's found out about my ability. I thought it was all over, that he was going to take me away, to be investigated, or something worse. But no. He just looked at me, serious, and asked a simple question. I need your statement. Was that it? I stayed silent for a few seconds, and then I told him everything. What I saw, the explosion, the guy running away, nothing else. No lies, no holding anything back. And when I finished, he simply nodded. He turned around and walked away. That was it. In that moment, I felt a huge sense of relief, like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. There were no suspicions, no problems, just work. So I carried on. I finished gathering everything, closed the deal, and got paid, cash in hand. And not only that, I also got to keep all that junk, convert it into raw material. That day, I made money. I gained resources. And most importantly, no one found out a thing. And as I left, I thought just one thing. This is working. The job was finally done. I had earned money, and I'd also acquired a huge amount of materials. As I walked back, I thought, well, now I can focus on missions again. But then I realized something. Wait, what am I going to do with all these materials? My ability could turn all that junk into raw matter. And then I could use reused material to create practically brand new products. The problem was selling them. The man who bought my materials had already told me he couldn't keep buying such large quantities. And if I kept doing missions, I'd just accumulate even more. I need another way to sell all this. I thought about finding more buyers, but sooner or later I'd run into the same problem. Then I came up with something much simpler. I've got it. Why don't I open my own shop? I could rent a small space and sell everything I made directly. Furniture, tools, plastic products, metal goods, whatever I could create. The more missions I completed, the more materials I'd get. And the more materials I had, the more products I could sell. I smiled. This just might work. I'd turn junk into products, and those products into money. So I got to work. If I really wanted to open a shop, I needed a space first. I went to a shopping mall I'd seen a few times. Upon entering, I approached the security guard. "Excuse me, who do I need to speak with to rent a space?" The man pointed towards some offices and explained how to get there. I followed his directions, and a few minutes later, I was sitting across from the mall manager. I explained that I was interested in one of the available units. She checked some documents and told me, to start the contract, we need a $10,000 down payment. $10,000? It was a lot of money. But if I wanted to grow my business, I had to invest. Besides, if my ability worked the way I hoped, I could earn that money back. So I took out my card and smiled. "I'll take it." The woman seemed a bit surprised by how quickly I'd answered. But I had already made up my mind. $10,000 for my own shop. Now I just need to fill it with products. Once I finished with the contract, I headed to my new shop. And, well, it was completely empty. There were no shelves, tables, or racks. Nothing. But for someone with my ability, that wasn't really a problem. Well, I'll have to fix it up. I activated reused material and started using everything I had gathered. Wood, plastic, glass, fabric, metal, everything that would normally be trash began to transform. First, I made the furniture, then the racks, tables, and shelves. I even crafted a rug and some decorations so the place wouldn't look like an abandoned warehouse. And in a matter of minutes, the shop was completely transformed. It looked clean, tidy, and quite cozy. I looked around, satisfied. Great, now I have a place to sell. And the best part, I had spent practically nothing to get it ready. Now I was missing just one thing: products. So that same day, I focused on missions again, one after another, until I finally had to stop. Phew, 9 missions. It wasn't a huge number, but it was enough. Now I had to see what I could craft with everything I had gathered. When I finished the missions, I checked how many points I'd earned. 2,000 shop points? Not bad. Without a doubt, each mission was harder than the last. But they also awarded far more points. And that was the best part. Using all the materials I'd gathered, I started crafting products and stocking them throughout the shop. Little by little, the shelves that had been completely empty began to fill up, until finally, perfect. It's fully stocked. There was just one small problem though. I still had a ton of products left over. I had nowhere left to put them, so I stored the rest in the back room to sell later. I looked at my fully stocked shop and smiled. I had the premises, I had the products, and I could basically craft new merchandise every day. But then I thought, one shop won't be enough. If I kept completing missions and gathering materials at this rate, I'd end up producing far more than I could sell. I needed another way to move all that merchandise. I thought about it for a moment until it hit me. I know, I can sell online too. So I set up a Amazon account and started listing my entire inventory. Or at least, that's what I tried to do. Because before my products appeared on the app, I received a message. To sell them, I first had to ship all the inventory to one of the company's warehouses. Well, I guess that makes sense. So I loaded all my boxes onto a truck and headed to the Amazon warehouse. When I arrived, the workers unloaded everything. They logged every item, checked the quantities, and added the products to the system. The process took a while, but finally I received the notification I'd been waiting for. Products published successfully. I smiled as I looked at my phone. Perfect. Now I had products in my physical store, and all the extra inventory was available online. I was no longer dependent on just one place to sell. Everything was going pretty well until I realized something important. Wait, who's going to run the shop? I had to keep going on quests, gathering materials, and crafting products. I couldn't be here all day, so I posted a job listing online. And to my surprise, by the next day, I already had several interested people. I decided to have them come to the shop so I could interview them in person. A lot of candidates came by. Some had experience, others definitely weren't what I was looking for. Then a young woman arrived. She had sales experience and knew exactly how to handle customers. And well, she was also quite pretty and had a great figure. Hey, don't get the wrong idea. That's not why I chose her. What really surprised me was her sales ability. As we talked, I realized she knew how to recommend products, persuade customers, and close sales. This girl is exactly what I need. So after giving it some thought, I decided to hire her. There were only 20 days left to pay the hospital bill, and when I checked my money, $5,000. I needed $50,000 a month so my sister could continue her treatment. I was still a long way off, but this time I wasn't desperate because now I had 3 ways to generate income. I collected trash, sold items in my physical store, and also had my products listed online. And best of all, I hardly had to spend any money to restock my inventory. I only needed trash. I'd collect it, turn it into raw material, and manufacture new products. That's when I realized something quite interesting. Wait a minute. Customers bought my products. They used them. Over time, they would break and eventually end up back in the trash. I would collect that trash and turn it back into products. I thought about it for a few seconds and smiled. It's a cycle. Trash, products, money, and trash all over again. Wow. Who would have thought that the skill I initially considered complete trash would turn out to be amazing? Once at the shop, I set about training my new saleswoman. I handed her a sheet of paper and explained, "Here's a list of all the products and their prices. Whenever you make a sale, just look it up on the list." She glanced at the sheet and then looked at me. "Are you seriously going to work like this? Huh? Your sales system is way too outdated. You need a computer with a system that automatically tracks products, prices, and sales. Doing everything by hand is going to be exhausting." I stared at my wonderful sheet of paper for a few seconds. Right. Luckily, she had a solution. My brother knows about that kind of thing. He could set it all up and get it running for you. I immediately grinned from ear to ear. "Perfect. You handle it." I left her the money and everything needed to set up the new system. I had far more important matters to attend to. "I'm leaving you in charge of the shop for now." And just like that, for the first time, I left my business in someone else's hands and walked away. After leaving the shop in capable hands, I set out to find another factory. I needed more places to collect waste, and after searching for quite a while, I finally found one. It was huge. Perfect. They must generate tons of waste here. I spoke to the manager, explained my service, and after a bit of negotiating, we reached an agreement. So I got to work. I collected everything I could, sorted the materials, and finished the job much faster than I'd expected. When I was done, the manager inspected everything and paid me. Perfect. Another client secured. Now I had 3 companies where I could regularly collect waste. That meant more money, more materials, and more products to sell. But on my way back, I realized there was another problem. I've got the shop, online sales, the missions, and now 3 companies. I sighed. If I keep growing like this, very soon I won't have enough time to do it all by myself. The next day, I stopped by the store, and to my surprise, everything was already set up. Computer, scanner, sales system, inventory, everything up and running. My employee's brother was still there, so I asked him how much I owed him. $1,000. I thought about it for a few seconds. I'll give you $2,000. He was taken aback, but I had my reasons. I'll probably need more of your help in the future. You have potential, and I'd like to keep working with you. After I paid him, my employee started checking the store's prices, and almost immediately she looked at me. These prices are way too low, even for a discount store. That's how I want them. She sighed. Then let's do it right. If you want to sell at such low prices, don't just set low prices. So, let's use special offers, blowout prices, discounts, bulk promotions, everything designed around the save more marketing concept. I thought it over. I just wanted to sell cheaply, but she was turning that into a strategy. I smiled. I definitely hired the right person. From that moment on, I made a decision. From now on, you'll be the sales manager. She looked at me in surprise. Plus, you'll get 40% of the store's net profits. She smiled. She didn't need to say much. Her expression practically said, I'll make sure you don't regret making me your partner. And honestly, I felt like I'd hit the jackpot with her. So we hired a second employee. She would handle managing the store, promotions, and sales. Meanwhile, the new employee would serve customers and keep the shelves stocked. And I could focus once again on sourcing merchandise. 5 days went by. During that time, I dedicated myself almost entirely to collecting trash, turning it into products, and constantly restocking my online inventory. But then, a new problem arose. Sold out again? The prices were so low that every time I listed merchandise, it sold almost immediately. Instead of worrying, I smiled. It seems my problem now isn't finding customers. It's producing fast enough. By this point, I had already completed 42 missions. And honestly, finishing one was getting harder and harder. The missions were constantly increasing in difficulty, but there was something that made up for it. The point multiplier. When I checked my account, I could hardly believe it. 30,000 shop points? I had 30,000 points saved up. The difficulty multiplier was absolutely insane. The problem was, I had nothing to spend them on. I had already bought all the skills available for the week. I checked the shop again. New skills available in 2 days. I sighed. I had 30,000 points accumulated, and there were still 2 days left until the shop reset. Well, I guess I'll have to wait. Although, considering how difficult the missions were becoming, I hoped the new skills would really be worth it. My employee was reviewing the shop's reports when she suddenly stared fixedly at the computer. Hey, something's missing here. What is it? There are no receipts for material purchases. I stayed silent. We have sales, inventory, and profits, but there's no record of where the merchandise comes from. I hadn't thought about that. Of course, I didn't buy materials. My ability turned trash into raw material, and then I simply crafted the products. But obviously, I couldn't tell her that. How am I supposed to explain where I get everything now? She kept checking the records. If we buy wood, plastic, glass, or any material, we need to have records. And if we get them from somewhere else, we have to document that too. Then she looked at me seriously. When it comes time to file reports, if we have merchandise constantly coming in but no record of where it's from, we're going to have a problem. I swallowed hard. Great. I'd found a way to turn trash into money. But now I had to find a way to explain where it all came from. Without a doubt, it was a serious problem. I couldn't keep bringing stock into the shop without a way to account for where the materials came from. I thought about it until an idea struck me. Wait, I think I can solve this. I already owned a waste collection business. What if I also turned it into a materials recycling and reuse company? I collected waste from factories, logged it, and my company could officially process it, turning it back into usable materials. That's it. So I set about handling all the necessary paperwork. From then on, my business wouldn't just collect trash, it would also recycle and reuse it. That way, I'd have records of the waste I received and an explanation for the materials used in my products. I still had one problem though. I didn't have enough money to buy land and build a proper recycling plant. I looked at my accounts and sighed. Well, one thing at a time. For the moment, I'd have to work with what I had. At least now I had a way to account for where my materials came from. Now I had another problem. I knew absolutely nothing about business management. So I went back to my employee and decided to explain the situation a bit better. Actually, I also own a collection and recycling company. The trash we collect gets reused to create the products we sell here. She smiled. Oh, that explains the prices. If everything we sell is made from reused materials, I just need the records from that company to organize the accounts properly. Yeah, about that. Her smile vanished. What is it? I don't have exact records of how much material was recycled or what was made from each thing. She stared right at me, a bit too intently. Wait. She narrowed her eyes. Is this business a front for money laundering? What? Of course not. I immediately held up my hands. Then explain to me how you turn tons of trash into merchandise without machinery, workers, or records. Well, the moment had come. I sighed. It's because I have an ability. She blinked. An ability? I nodded. Yes, I can recycle trash with my ability. She stared at me in complete disbelief. Well, if you won't tell me the truth, then I don't want any part of a shady business. What? The moment I saw she was seriously thinking about quitting, I knew I had to do something. Wait, I'll show you. I activated my ability, and right in front of her, one of the cups we sold in the shop appeared out of thin air. Her eyes widened. Where did you get that? I told you. My ability can take trash, turn it into materials, and reuse them to create new things. She was still confused. So I decided to do it again. I picked up another piece of waste, activated my ability, and seconds later, another brand new product appeared. This time, she fell silent. She looked at the object. Then she looked at me and looked back at the object. Wait! She stepped closer, looking astonished. Are you seriously telling me you have a superpower? Well, I looked at the product in my hands. I guess you could call it that. After explaining how my abilities worked, she finally seemed to understand it all. She fell silent for a few seconds, thinking, and then said, So you got an incredible ability, but you had no idea how to keep it a secret. I couldn't argue with that, so I simply nodded. I expected her to get scared or to start bombarding me with hundreds of questions, but the exact opposite happened. Her eyes began to sparkle with excitement. You need someone who knows business. She pointed at me. And you literally have a power that generates money? Well, when you put it that way. Suddenly she grinned from ear to ear. I've got it. We'll be the dynamic money-making duo. She raised her fist in excitement. We'll grow the company and crush the entire market. Huh? I looked at her, practically seeing dollar signs reflected in her eyes. She was probably already imagining mansions, luxury cars, and vacations around the world. I sighed. I think I've just awakened something dangerous in her. Then again, maybe I had found exactly the partner I needed. She looked at me with complete confidence. Don't worry, I'll handle everything needed to keep the company running. Then she pointed at me. You just focus on one thing, getting materials. That I can do. So over the next few days, we really started getting everything organized. We hired staff to handle records, accounts, and administration. But obviously, no one could know about my ability. That's why she was the one who first received all the information I provided. She organized it, turned it into records the other employees could use, and kept my ability out of the picture entirely. I gathered the trash. She turned my data into something the company could handle, and the others kept the business running. It was a rather strange system, but it worked. 10 days passed. Contracts, records, inventories, employees. Everything was finally organized. I looked it all over and breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, our company was now operating like a real business. When I checked my progress, I already had 48 completed missions, and my shop points had risen to 50,000. But that wasn't the most incredible part. I checked my bank account. $60,000. Billed revenue, taxes deducted, records in order. Everything completely legal. No way! The physical store was working. Online sales, too. I had truly turned trash into a profitable business. But then I remembered something far more interesting. The skill shop has reset. I opened it immediately. This time, 3 new skills appeared. Toxin resistance, 3,000 points. It made me immune to toxic substances, useful for someone working amidst trash. The second one, Area collection, 5,000 points. I could collect any waste within a 1-meter radius. My eyes lit up. This is going to speed up my work tremendously. And finally, dimensional space, 10,000 points. A 10-meter dimensional storage space where I could keep practically anything. I stared at the 3 options. I had 50,000 points, and buying all 3 would cost only 18,000. I smiled. Why choose? I'll take all 3. My partner, whose name, by the way, was Natalia, walked over to me while checking her phone. Hey, have you seen the news? No. Why? Natalia showed me the screen. It turns out you aren't the only one with superpowers. Lately, videos had started popping up online. People doing things that simply shouldn't be possible. Strange abilities, superhuman strength, powers that looked like something out of a movie. Natalia looked at me seriously. If I hadn't just seen you use an ability with my own eyes, I think all those videos were fake. Then she pointed at me. But you have powers, so now I can actually believe it. I simply nodded. Well, what? I scratched my head. Actually, I already knew there were plenty of people with abilities. Natalia fell silent. What do you mean you already knew? I think I just said something I shouldn't have. Well, I can't tell you anything else. Natalia frowned. Why? Because it's a secret. Naturally, that only made her have more questions. She pressed me several times, but I wasn't about to tell her about the gods, the abilities, and certainly not about what was going to happen in a year. All I can tell you is that there are many people with different powers. I paused, and compared to the others, my ability is one of the weakest. Natalia's eyes widened. Weak? Are you crazy? Your ability is incredible. It's practically useless in combat. She looked at me, confused. Combat? Why do you need to fight? Then she gestured around the shop. We live in a capitalist world. Your ability can turn trash into products, and those products into money. She smiled. To me, that's more powerful than shooting fire or having super strength. Yeah, I let out a small, nervous laugh. If she knew the truth, if she knew that in a year, this world would change completely, she probably wouldn't think that way. But for now, it was better that she didn't know. The day I had been waiting for so long finally arrived. And dreading. I had to pay my sister's hospital bills. When I arrived, a man in a suit was waiting for me. I recognized him immediately. He seemed quite calm, too calm, as if he were waiting to hear just one thing, that I didn't have the money. But this time, he was wrong. I went straight to pay. $50,000, the full amount. When I finished, the man approached me. Where did you get so much money? I looked at him for a few seconds. That doesn't matter. And I kept walking. That man had always seemed suspicious to me. He was somehow connected to my sister, losing the insurance that covered her treatment. But at that moment, I didn't want any trouble. I had paid. My sister could continue her treatment. That was the only thing that mattered to me. So I simply ignored him. Big mistake. Because as I walked away, that man took out his phone. My sudden ability to pay $50,000 had piqued his curiosity. And from that moment on, he decided to investigate me. A month had already passed since I received my ability. And honestly, I was quite happy with my progress. I had managed to evolve it to rank D very quickly. But now, things were different. 51 missions, and there was still no sign of a new evolution. Each rank is definitely going to be harder. I had also used some shop points to boost my stats. Strength, 15. Speed, 15. Stamina, 15. Defense, 15. Intelligence, 15. My body was already far superior to what it had been a month ago. The problem was the cost. Each stat point cost more than the last. And I couldn't just spend my shop points as if they were infinite. The special abilities in the shop were far more important. Besides, they were time limited. If a good ability appeared and I didn't have enough points to buy it, I'd lose it once the shop refreshed. I looked at my remaining points and sighed. I guess I'll have to start managing them better. Because from now on, every point I spent would have to be worth it. I checked my accounts, 38,000 store points, and in my bank account, $30,000. It wasn't bad. In fact, I had planned to save up this month to buy a factory and finally give my recycling business a proper storefront. But something was still bothering me. I need to generate more money. Sales were going well, but if I wanted to grow all this, I needed to increase revenue. So I called a meeting with Natalia and her brother. I need ideas. How can we earn more? Natalia answered almost immediately. We could stop selling only to individuals. We could also sell merchandise directly to companies. Large orders, hundreds or even thousands of units. I thought about it. That is a great idea. Her brother chimed in too. I can set up the system to receive and manage those orders. Perfect. A physical store, online sales, and now sales to companies. But Natalia quickly pointed out the problem. There's something we need to solve first. What is it? If we start getting large orders, she looked at me seriously. We'll need a way to source far more resources. She was right. The problem was no longer how to sell more. It was how to produce enough. So we decided to scale up operations. We rented more trucks and hired staff to handle trash collection. Before long, we were working with 10 factories, in addition to several small businesses. And since we charged a low rate for the service, getting new clients was surprisingly easy. All the trash ended up at a plot of land I was paying off in installments. The trucks would arrive during the day, unload, and the employees would leave. But at night, I did my part. I used my skills to gather and repurpose everything. So when the workers returned the next day, the lot was practically empty. Perfect. Our efficiency skyrocketed. Now we had trucks dedicated to collecting waste and others to transport the materials we had repurposed. More trash came in every day. More materials went out every day. And as I watched the trucks coming and going, I thought, this doesn't look like a small business anymore. We're building a real recycling company. The workers also started noticing something strange. Every day, they would arrive at the site, unload tons of trash, and leave. But when they returned the next morning, everything was gone. Naturally, theories began to circulate. They must have night shift workers who haul it all away somewhere else. But others weren't convinced. Workers? How many would they need to move all that trash in a single night? And as always, someone came up with a far more absurd theory. I say they're performing satanic rituals. What? Think about it. They hand the trash over to the devil in exchange for money. Of course, no one really knew what was going on. In the end, it all amounted to nothing more than rumors and speculation. Not that they investigated too deeply anyway. The company paid well, the job was stable, and as long as the paychecks kept coming, most of them held a pretty simple philosophy. I don't know what they do with the trash, and I'm not paid to find out. Another 10 days passed, and when Natalia showed me the numbers, even I was surprised. We were already collecting waste from 30 factories. On top of that, our trucks had full routes picking up waste from small businesses. But that wasn't all. We had also secured 10 large companies that bought our reused materials, along with many smaller clients. We're growing too fast. Every day, more waste came in. Every day, more materials went out. And of course, every day, more money came in. What started as a desperate way to pay for my sister's treatment was turning into a pretty big company. But growing so fast came with a problem. People were starting to wonder who the hell we were. And among the first to notice us was one of the city's major waste collection companies. The same bastards who had dominated various routes for years. Suddenly, a new company appeared, charging lower rates, snapping up factories, and growing at an absurd speed. Obviously, they weren't happy about it. While I was celebrating our growth, they had already started investigating who was behind my company. And without realizing it, I had just caught the attention of the wrong competition. The waste collection company called an urgent meeting. The leader entered the room and got straight to the point. It seems there's a company trying to compete with us. He tapped the table lightly. And that is unacceptable. The figures appeared on the screen. 30 factories lost, not to mention an entire sector of small businesses that used to rely on their services. The worrying thing is that this company was founded just 30 days ago, and it's growing far too fast. Then the screen changed. 3 photographs appeared. Mine, Natalia's, and her brother's. These are the people responsible. The shareholders began to study the images, until one of them leaned forward. Wait, he pointed at Natalia. That girl looks familiar. The room fell silent. Wasn't she one of the key figures behind Enova? Another shareholder's eyes widened. The famous company that skyrocketed and then collapsed 2 months later. Exactly. Everyone looked back at Natalia's photograph. Suddenly, Our company's meteoric growth started to make a bit more sense to them. One of the men smiled. So, that girl is the one behind their strategy. The leader clasped his hands. In that case, find out why she left Innova and what she's planning to do with this new company. The boss stared at the photographs for a few seconds. Then he spoke with absolute calm. I want you to rough up the guy in the picture. One of the men smiled. Like we do with everyone who tries to compete with us? Exactly. The boss rose from his seat. Trash is our business, and that's precisely why it's perfect. The others remained silent. No one pays attention to this market. To the government, we're just trucks hauling away waste. He smiled. That allows us to control the routes, inflate prices, and decide who gets in. He tapped his finger on the photograph of the man. And when competition shows up, he paused. We eliminate it before it grows. One of the shareholders asked, and what do we do about his company? The boss smiled. Scare him first. Make him understand how things work. He looked back at the screen. If he's smart, he'll walk away from the business. And if not, his expression turned cold. We'll find another way to force him out of the market. For them, it wasn't about trash. It was about controlling a business where, until now, no one had dared to compete with them. Elsewhere in the world, something very different was beginning. A multi-billion-dollar agency had started looking for people with special abilities. Officially, their goal was to gather them, train them, and help them develop their powers. But their true objective was something else: to hoard as many ability users as possible and bring them under their control. The project had a name: Superhumans. And as all this was getting underway, a young man was walking toward one of the designated meeting points. That young man was me. My name is Damien. From the moment I awakened my ability, I thought, this is it. I'm going to get rich. That is, until I discovered what I could actually do. My ability was called like new. I could take something broken and repair it until it was practically like new. Sounds amazing, right? Well, not really. After a month, I had barely managed to evolve it to rank E. The missions were getting harder, and repairing objects wasn't exactly the superpower I had dreamed of. But then, I heard a rumor. An organization was looking for people like me, people with abilities. So, I decided to go. As I walked toward the meeting point, I looked at my hands. Maybe my ability isn't all that impressive. I smiled, but perhaps they'll know how to make the most of it. What Damien didn't know yet was that the organization wasn't gathering superhumans to help them. They were collecting them. As I walked toward the meeting spot, I remembered my first attempt at using my ability. When I discovered I could repair things, I thought, I know, I'll open an electronics repair shop. It seemed like the perfect idea. Cell phones, computers, tablets, I could make them look practically brand new. The problem arose with my first few customers. Where are my photos? I lost all my files. It turned out my ability repaired the device perfectly, but it wiped out all the data inside. And naturally, the customers didn't just want their money back. They also wanted me to pay them for the information they'd lost. It was a terrible idea. Instead of getting rich, I ended up in debt. That's why when a mysterious agency contacted me saying they were looking for people with special abilities, I didn't think twice. Maybe they can help me improve my ability. And to be honest, maybe I can make some money too. I finally arrived. A huge building stood before me, but it didn't say Superhumans anywhere. Just as they'd explained, everything was disguised. Officially, the place was just a private research firm. I looked at the building and took a deep breath. All right, Damien, let's see what the hell you've gotten yourself into. I'm Damien. I walked into the building, trying to act normal, even though I was pretty nervous inside. I approached the reception desk. The woman looked at me and asked, "How can I help you?" I took a breath and said the phrase I'd been sent. "The flame does not go out." Her expression changed immediately. Without asking any questions, she took out a wristband and handed it to me. Put it on. A moment later, an assistant appeared and led me through several corridors to a completely empty room. There was only one sign: "Show your ability." And in front of me, a huge mirror. That's definitely not a mirror. They could probably see me from the other side. "My ability can repair objects," I said aloud. There was no response. Suddenly, clank, a hatch opened above me, and 5 completely destroyed objects fell down. Seriously? No one said a word. They were just watching me. Feeling a bit nervous, I picked up the first one. I activated my ability. Good as new. In an instant, The object was fully repaired. I did the same with the others. One by one, all 5 were restored to like-new condition. Another hatch opened. I understood the signal and placed the repaired objects inside. A few seconds passed. Then, a voice came over the speakers. Power confirmed. A door in front of me unlocked. You may proceed. I swallowed hard. Well, I guess the real test starts now. I walked through the door and ended up in a huge hall that looked set up for a lecture. There were so many people. Do all of them have abilities? I found a spot and sat down. While we waited for the speech to start, I struck up a conversation with a few people around me, and I quickly made a couple of friends. The first was a guy with long red hair. My ability lets me cut things with my hands. Cut? He gave me a quick demonstration. He moved 2 fingers and cleanly sliced through an object without even touching it. What kind of overpowered ability is that? Then I met a rather beautiful girl. Her ability was even more impressive. She held out her hand, and the water from a bottle began to float around her fingers. She could control water. I looked at my own hands. One could cut things, the other controlled water. And me? I can fix a toaster. I sighed. I definitely got the cheap ability. But as we were talking, the lights in the hall began to dim. Everyone fell silent. It seemed the speech was about to begin. The lights went out completely, and then a young, elegant, and quite handsome man stepped onto the stage. He walked to the center and looked out at everyone. As you might imagine, this project is completely secret. The room fell silent. Our research indicates that if the government discovers our abilities, they will take them away. He paused. And then they will erase our memories. People began to murmur. Some were surprised. Others seemed to have suspected it all along. I know coming here was a risk. After all, this could very well have been a government trap. He smiled. That's why I appreciate you putting your trust in us. Then the huge screen behind him lit up. But there is something everyone needs to understand. You are not alone. My company and the investors behind the Superhumans project are going to fund you. Images of facilities, training sessions, and resources began to appear on the screen. We will help you find ways to use your powers. We will provide the resources to complete your missions. And we will help you evolve your abilities. The entire room was captivated. Even I was. Help us evolve? The man spread his arms wide. We invest in you, and you put your abilities to work. He smiled. Tell me, doesn't that sound like a deal too tempting to refuse? And looking at everyone's faces, including my own, he knew exactly what we wanted to hear. The man continued speaking from the stage. If you want to be part of this company, you only have to do one thing. A document appeared on the screen. A contract. Read it, and if you agree, sign it. From that moment on, you will officially be part of the Superhumans project. Then, he raised a hand. But I want to make one thing clear. No one is forced to stay. If you aren't interested in our proposal, you are free to leave. He smiled calmly. We'll be here, waiting for those who decide to join. He gave a slight bow. Welcome to the project, and have a wonderful day. Then, he walked away. Several employees immediately entered and began handing out contracts. When mine arrived, I stared at it. Should I sign it? Part of me wanted to get up and walk out. I didn't really know these people. But then I remembered my debts. My abilities stuck at rank E, and everything they had just offered. Money, resources, a way to complete missions, and perhaps a chance to discover the true limits of my ability. Well, I picked up the pen, and I signed. In that moment, I officially became a member of the Superhumans project, without yet knowing what I had actually agreed to. Elsewhere in the world, while private organizations began gathering individuals with special abilities, the government was also making its moves. An emergency meeting was convened at a high-security facility. It was no ordinary meeting. Present were some of the country's most important figures: military generals, high-ranking intelligence officials, heads of government agencies, representatives from defense organizations, all gathered for a single reason. Dozens of videos appeared on the main screen. People lifting impossible objects, controlling the elements, moving at unnatural speeds, using abilities that simply should not exist. The person leading the meeting spoke up. Until a month ago, we thought these videos were fakes. The screen changed. Now hundreds of files appeared. We can no longer think that. The room fell completely silent. We have enough evidence to confirm the existence of people with capabilities that defy everything we know. One of the generals crossed his arms. How many? The man remained silent for a few seconds. That is precisely the problem. He looked at everyone present. We have no idea. The tension in the room mounted, because while Damien thought the government knew nothing, the reality was completely different. The government was already investigating the so-called superhumans. The meeting's representative stood up. We have something even stranger. Several files appeared on the screen. We've managed to capture some of the people who supposedly possess these abilities. Everyone paid close attention. We analyzed their blood, organs, DNA, brain activity, everything. The screen changed. Normal. Physically, they are completely normal humans. One of the generals asked, "And the powers?" The representative shook his head. We didn't find any. A murmur ran through the room. Furthermore, something even stranger happened when we interrogated them. He showed the interrogation recordings. They all exhibit the same problem: memory loss. They don't remember having powers. They don't remember how they got them. Some don't even remember the incidents that led to their capture. An agent interjected, "So what proof do we have that they actually exist?" The representative changed the screen again. Videos, photographs, police reports, testimonies. We have hundreds of videos, multiple witnesses, and documented cases. He paused, but every time we manage to capture one, the power disappears. Silence. We have no physical evidence explaining how this works. The general frowned. That makes no sense. Exactly. The representative looked around the room. That's why this case is so strange. The screen changed one last time. Possible explanations. Currently, they have several theories. After analyzing all the cases, we finally found a pattern. The representative changed the screen display. We have determined something extremely important. Everyone fell silent. When a person with supposed abilities comes into direct contact with someone officially affiliated with a government agency, he paused. They lose their powers. Those present exchanged glances. And not only that, they also lose all memories associated with them. Several cases appeared on the screen. The pattern was identical. Contact with the government. Power lost. Memories erased. It's almost as if the representative hesitated before continuing, as if some higher entity were deliberately granting these abilities, but had a specific rule to prevent those of us who already control the power structures from using them. The room erupted in argument that would plunge the world into chaos. One protested. Another slammed his fist on the table. If we can't control these so-called superhumans, sooner or later our authority will begin to wane. Then one of the men spoke coldly. The solution is simple. Everyone turned to look at him. Let's capture them. The room fell silent. If we can't use their powers, he narrowed his eyes. Then we can't allow them to become a threat to the established order. Either. The representative remained solemn. The meeting had begun as a scientific inquiry, but little by little, it was turning into a discussion on how to maintain control of the world. And so, after hours of discussion, the representative made a decision. He stood up before everyone. If these abilities are truly appearing all over the world, we cannot simply stand by and watch. A new classified file appeared on the screen. Anti-Superhuman Project. We will do whatever it takes to stop these individuals from destroying the balance we have built. He looked at the generals, directors, and representatives present. To achieve this, I need everyone's support. Intelligence, armed forces, security agencies, financial resources, information. No one answered. But one by one, they began to approve the project. The representative took a deep breath. Then it is officially authorized. The screen changed. Anti-Superhuman Project. Active. Let the war begin. And at that very moment, something happened. Thousands of people around the world who possessed abilities received the exact same message right before their eyes. System warning. A new world event has begun. Anti-Superhuman Project detected. The governments of the world have declared powered individuals a threat. New missions will now become available. People all over the world stared at that warning. Damien received it too. And of course, Ethan. Barely a month after we gained our powers, the game had changed completely. It was no longer just about completing missions or evolving our abilities. Now, the war between governments and superhumans had begun. At that moment, the system message changed. A new warning appeared before all of us who still retained our abilities. System update. New event rules. The first rule appeared. You may use your abilities to defend yourselves against government forces. Defend ourselves. Then the second one appeared. If your true identity is discovered by the government, you will immediately lose your ability. That was different. Simply finding us was no longer enough. They had to discover who we were. Then another warning appeared. Upon losing your ability, you will retain your normal memories. You will remember that you once possessed powers, but you will forget how you obtained them. And there was something even more important. All information regarding what was to happen within 1 year would be erased from our memories. No one would be able to reveal the secret after losing their ability. Finally, the last message appeared. War is now inevitable. The system recognizes the participants' right to defend themselves. I stared at those words. This was no longer just a game of missions. The government wanted to find us. We were permitted to defend ourselves. But there was one rule that could end it all. If they discovered who you really were, it was over. Upon returning to my side, the first thing I did was look for Natalia. We have a problem. She stopped what she was doing and looked at me. What happened? I told her about the system's warning. The government had started taking action against people with abilities. Natalia's eyes widened. Wait, why shouldn't the government find out about you guys? Another question I couldn't answer. I can't explain that to you. She immediately grimaced. With the secrets again. Natalia, you already know too much. I sighed. You know people with superpowers exist. You know I'm one of them. And now you know there's a war against the government. I looked at her seriously. The fewer people who know exactly how my ability works, the better. Natalia fell into thought. Then she smiled. Then you have nothing to worry about. Why? She pointed outside, where our trucks were collecting trash just like any other day. Because you work with trash. So, Ethan, to most of society, trash ceases to exist the moment the truck hauls it away. I remained silent. No one wonders what happened to a broken bottle or an old bag. No one looks twice at the guy collecting their waste. Natalia smiled. While other superhumans shoot fire, control water, or destroy things, she pointed at me. You just pick up trash. She paused. You're practically invisible. I smiled. For the first time, having an ability considered trash seemed to be my best protection. 5 days had passed since that warning appeared. And luckily, nothing had changed for me. My company was still operating normally. The trucks were collecting trash. The materials were being sold. And the money kept coming in. When I checked my accounts, I had $50,000 available. But the most impressive thing was my new salary, $100,000 a month. When Natalia explained how it would work, I didn't understand at first. Even though you're the owner, you need to have a salary, she told me. But isn't all the company's money mine? Natalia practically threw up her hands in exasperation. No, your money and the company's money are two different things. Oh. So we set up a system. I would receive a paycheck just like any other employee, and the rest of the profits would stay within the company to be reinvested for further growth. Honestly, it seemed perfect to me. With $100,000 a month, I could pay the $50,000 for my sister's hospital care, cover my expenses, and still have plenty left over. I looked at the figures and smiled. Not long ago, I had been desperate to get money. Now, I had a company that was growing every day. And if we kept moving forward at this pace, that $100,000 a month would be just the beginning. I was sitting quietly on a park bench, taking advantage of a spare moment to check my status window. 60 missions completed, and yet the limit still hadn't appeared. How many damn missions do I have to do? At least there was some good news. The experience gained from using my skill had finally maxed out. Skill usage EXP max, but my skill remained at rank D. I get it now. By choosing missions on hell difficulty, I had obtained absurdly good rewards. But in exchange, evolving my skill had become much harder. Well, I guess I couldn't have it all. Then I remembered something. The shop had refreshed. I checked my points. 48,000 shop points. Not bad. And there were 3 new skills this week. Toxin collection. 5,000 points. It allowed me to collect toxic substances and then expel them. That could be really useful. The next one, automatic trash collection, 3,000 points. Nearby trash would be collected automatically without me having to do it manually. My eyes lit up. I definitely want this one. And finally, collector's eye, 2,000 points. It significantly improved my visual acuity. I stared at the three of them. I had 48,000 points, and buying all of them would cost barely 10,000. I smiled. I guess I won't have to choose this week either. After buying the new skills, I decided to spend a little more on my stats. Just a little. Yeah, right. When I finished, I checked the numbers. Strength, 18. Agility, 20. Energy, 20. Defense, 18. Intelligence, 15. Perfect. Then I saw how much I'd spent in total. 13,000 shop points. Between the new skills and my stats, the points were disappearing way too fast. This is getting incredibly expensive. If I kept buying things without thinking, eventually a really good skill would come along, and I wouldn't have the points to get it. I need to start watching my spending. Before closing the window, I decided to do something I hadn't done in a while. Let's see exactly what I have now. I opened my full skill list. Skill list. Collection speed times 1.50. Increased my speed while collecting trash. Spatial collection bag. An internal space of 3 times 3 meters. Collection stamina boost. Allowed me to work for much longer periods. Toxin resistance. Protected me from toxic substances. Area collection. Allowed me to collect trash within a range of about 1 meter. Dimensional space. A dimensional storage area of about 10 meters. Automatic trash collection. Nearby trash could be collected automatically. Toxin collection. Allowed me to absorb and subsequently expel toxins. And finally, collector's eye. Enhanced my vision. I stared at the whole list. Wait. At first, my skill was only good for picking up trash. Now I had dimensional storage, toxin resistance, enhanced physical capabilities, and the ability to collect things automatically. I smiled. Who's the idiot who said garbage collector was a useless skill? Upon looking at my list of skills, I noticed something I hadn't tested until now. I could upgrade them too. I decided to try it out on automatic trash collection. I opened the skill details. Automatic trash collection, LV.1. Upgrade cost, 3,000 store points. 3,000 points? It seemed ridiculously expensive to me, but I was curious to see just how much an individual skill could be improved. Well, let's do it. Purchase confirmed. Automatic trash collection, LV.2. The changes appeared immediately. Automatic range, plus 5 meters. Collection speed, times 2. I stared at it. Is that it? I'd spent 3,000 points just to increase the range and speed. Then again, it could be quite useful for my business. That's when I noticed the small LV.2 next to the name. So, skills have levels. I checked the cost to upgrade it again. Upgrade to LV.3, 5,000 store points. You've got to be kidding me. First 3,000, now 5,000. And it would surely keep going up. I sighed and closed the window. I definitely need to stop spending just out of curiosity, because I was starting to get the picture. The stronger I wanted to become, the more expensive every little upgrade would be. Night fell while I was still checking the system. So, I closed the status window and left the park. I walked to the underground parking lot where I'd left my car. Yeah, I bought a car. Nothing fancy, just something comfortable and functional that cost me about $25,000. Even though I was making good money now, I still couldn't afford to start spending it like an idiot. Company first, luxuries later. I took out my keys and was about to reach the car when I heard footsteps. I stopped. 5 men appeared from between the vehicles, big, strong, and they definitely didn't look like they were there to ask for the time. Great. For a moment, I thought they wanted to rob me, or worse, the government. But one of them spoke. "We've been waiting for you." The 5 of them started to surround me. "We have a message for you. Shut down your company and get out of the waste management business." My company? Then I understood. This had nothing to do with my powers. It was the competition. I breathed a little easier, although I still had 5 huge guys standing in front of me. "I'm not closing my business." The man smiled. He cracked his knuckles and looked at the others. "Did you hear that?" The others started closing in. I heard. He paused. "Hit me so hard that I'll want to close my company tomorrow." I looked at the 5 of them. A month ago, I probably would have run away. but now I had 18 strength, 20 agility, 20 energy, and 18 defense. And for the first time, I was going to find out what those numbers really meant. The first one didn't wait any longer. He lunged at me and threw a straight punch at my head. For an instant, I could see it coming. My eyes managed to track his movement perfectly, but my body didn't react. Wham! The blow landed square. I braced for the pain, but it never came. It just felt like someone had pushed my head with their hand. Is that it? The guy stepped back, confused. Shit! He started shaking his hand. My knuckles hurt. I touched my cheek. Nothing. It didn't even hurt. Wait. Then I understood. 18 points of defense. My body no longer had the durability of an ordinary person. So, 18 points. I looked at the guy clutching his hand. It's pretty much like punching a log. I smiled slightly. Well, at least I knew one thing now. They weren't going to do much damage with their fists. But then, the biggest of the five shoved his companion aside. Move. He was huge. Definitely the strongest of the bunch. You went too easy on him. He cracked his neck as he walked toward me. Your punch didn't even hurt him. He raised his fist. Leave him to me. He smiled. I'm actually going to smash his face in. I watched him approach. And this time I thought, well, let's see how much my defense can really take. The biggest one stepped forward. Now you'll see what a real punch looks like. This time, his fist came flying with much more force. I managed to see it coming again. But, wham! He hit me square in the face, and this time, I actually ended up on the ground. Not because the blow had wrecked me, but because it had enough force to completely knock me off balance. Shit! The guy shook his hand. What the hell is your face made of? He looked at his knuckles. It's like punching wood. I stayed on the ground, processing what had just happened. This guy is different. I had felt that hit. It wasn't enough to cause serious damage, but the guy punched with the kind of force that suggested he was used to hitting hard objects. And then, something surfaced that my stats still couldn't eliminate. Fear. Yeah, I'd better get out of here. I got up and took off running. Catch him! All five of them chased after me, but the moment I picked up speed, I heard their shouts fading into the distance. What the hell? That bastard is running too fast. I was surprised too. My legs were maintaining a speed I'd never reached before. So I decided to test something out. I ran a full circle around the parking lot and ended up back in practically the same spot, breathing steady. Legs fine, hardly any fatigue. That's when I understood the difference. 20 agility, 20 energy. I didn't know how to fight. I had no technique, but physically, those guys couldn't keep up with me. And as I watched them arrive, completely exhausted, I thought, maybe I've been using my stats the wrong way. The men were completely exhausted. After trying to follow me across the parking lot, they could barely catch their breath. Damn it. One of them leaned against a pillar. We lost him. That bastard is too fast. The biggest one took a deep breath. Forget it. Let's go back. He pointed toward where my car was parked. Sooner or later, he'll have to come back for it. So they started walking slowly back. What they didn't know was that I had already circled back around. While they were busy catching their breath, I made it back to my car. I got in. I closed the door. And I started the engine. The headlights came on. All five of them turned around immediately. What? He's already in the car. They ran toward me. Well, they tried to run. After chasing me, they were so tired they could barely move fast. See ya. I put the car in gear and calmly drove out of the parking lot. No bumps, no fighting, and no trouble at all. As I drove, I thought, I definitely need to learn how to defend myself. But I had also discovered something important. If I don't know how to fight, I can always run. The next day, I told Natalia everything that had happened. The five guys, the threats, and the message telling me to shut down my company. Natalia didn't even have to think twice. It was definitely the competition. The competition? I did some market research. There's basically only one big collection company dominating this area. She frowned. Those bastards have practically taken over the market, and now you show up charging low rates and stealing their customers. Oh, that made sense. But Natalia immediately changed the subject. Wait, how the hell did you survive against 5 thugs? Well, I have stats. She stared at me. Stats? Yeah. Strength, agility, energy, defense, intelligence. Her eyes lit up. Like in a video game? Sort of. Natalia got excited. So you're super strong. Did you hit them? Did you beat them up? I looked away. No. Then I ran. Her excitement vanished. You ran? I don't know how to fight. Natalia pointed right at me. Then you're going to learn. I don't like fighting. Ethan, you have strength, speed, and stamina far beyond a normal person. And you don't know how to use them. Well, I don't really need to. You're signing up for a martial arts school. What? Martial arts. But martial arts. The way she was looking at me made it pretty clear that arguing was pointless. I sighed. Great. I survived against 5 thugs, only to end up being forced by Natalia to learn how to fight. Elsewhere, the investigation into me had finally yielded results. The man who had found me at the hospital was sitting in his office, reviewing a vast amount of information. So this explains where he got the money. My company appeared on the screen. It had been founded just a month ago, and yet it was already generating a considerable amount of money. So he didn't get the money mysteriously. He simply started a company. But something didn't add up. How the hell did a company that appeared out of nowhere grow so fast? He continued investigating clients, contracts, collection routes, material sales. Everything seemed to be in order until he decided to look into the people working with me. And then he found Natalia. Upon opening her file, his expression changed. Natalia? Administrative experience, sales, negotiation, business management. She had even been involved with a major company in the past. The man stared at her photograph. So she's the one behind the growth. That explained a lot, but another question immediately arose. A woman with this kind of experience could work for much larger companies. He leaned back in his chair. Then he looked at my photograph again. Why would someone of her caliber end up working for a nobody like this? The explanation for my success was starting to make sense, but at the same time, the investigation had just raised an even greater suspicion. Meanwhile, 2 completely different investigations were about to cross paths. On one side was Kyle, the man who had started investigating me after our encounter at the hospital. And on the other, Fabio, the investigator sent by the rival waste management company. The 2 had followed different leads, but both arrived at the same name, Natalia. And to learn more about her past, they both ended up at the Innova offices. The curious thing was that they arrived at practically the same time. Good morning. I need to speak with someone about a former employee. Me too. They both placed their business cards on the counter. Then they looked at each other. I got here first, Kyle said. Fabio raised an eyebrow. I was here before you. That's not true. The receptionist took both cards and sighed. Gentlemen, please wait a few minutes. Someone will be with you shortly. They ended up sitting side by side, in complete silence, until Fabio spoke. I'm going in first. No, I got here first. We already discussed that. And so, they began to argue like 2 children over who would be seen first. The funny thing was, neither knew who the other really was, nor did they know that they had made their way to Innova, investigating the exact same people. Suddenly, an executive appeared before us. Gentlemen, thank you for waiting. Please follow me. Kyle and Fabio stood up at the same time. They were still eyeing each other with a hint of annoyance. They entered a meeting room, and the executive took a seat across from them. I was informed that representatives from 2 major companies wanted to speak with us. He glanced at the business cards on the table. One related to the waste collection business. Then he looked at the other. And Apex Medical Group. He clasped his hands together. So, gentlemen, what brings you to Innova? They both answered at the exact same time. We want information about Natalia. Silence. Cal slowly turned toward Fabio. Fabio did the exact same thing. Natalia? They repeated. At that moment, Kyle began to piece things together. Wait, Fabio represented a waste collection company, and Ethan had just founded a company that was competing directly in that market. So they investigated its growth too. Kyle could almost reconstruct the whole picture. They had likely investigated Ethan, then found Natalia, and reached the same conclusion he had. She seemed to be the explanation behind the company's growth. But Fabio was far more confused. What the hell does Apex Medical Group want with Natalia? He couldn't find any connection. Waste, medicine, Natalia. Nothing fit. As the two men silently sized each other up, the Innova executive raised an eyebrow. Excuse me. They both turned toward him. Who is Natalia? Kale and Fabio froze. After all the effort it took to get there, the company itself didn't seem to know who they were talking about. Fabio took out his phone and showed a photograph. This is Natalia. The staff member studied the image for a few seconds. Her face looks familiar. He decided to call Human Resources. Shortly after, the department manager arrived. As soon as he saw the photograph, he recognized her. Yes, that woman worked here. Kyle and Fabio exchanged glances. What happened to her? Kyle asked. The manager replied calmly. She was fired. Fired? Fabio repeated. She made too many mistakes. We finally decided to let her go. Kyle remained silent, analyzing the answer. But Fabio didn't seem convinced. That doesn't make sense. The manager looked at him. Why? Fabio pointed to the photograph. According to the information I gathered, Natalia played a key role when Innova was at its peak. The staff member slowly raised an eyebrow. Wait. His expression changed. Where exactly did you get that information? Silence filled the room. Fabio had just mentioned something that, apparently, Innova didn't want outsiders to know. The manager shook his head. No. Innova's growth wasn't thanks to Natalia. He settled back in his seat. Back then, we had one of our best employees on board. Her strategies were so vital that we ended up making her a business partner. The HR manager nodded. Natalia was the exact opposite. She was probably one of the most useless employees we had. Fabio frowned. Then explain this to me. He pulled out several documents and laid them on the table. These are records of sales managed directly by Natalia. The manager began to review them. Contracts, clients, dates, revenue. Fabio pointed to a graph. This is the date Natalia joined Innova. The line began to rise, and from this point on, sales skyrocketed. Then he pointed to another spot. This is the date she was fired. The graph plummeted. Silence. The manager stopped smiling. Kale watched everything without saying a word. The HR manager checked the dates again. Until that moment, he had always thought Innova was simply going through a rough patch. But now, the coincidences were too numerous. Natalia arrived. The company grew. Natalia was fired. The company began to decline. The manager slowly looked up. Wait! He looked at the records again. If this data is correct, his expression changed completely. Then he paused, made a huge mistake